Hi YouTube, today I'm taking a look at something new to Flat Earth. Street evangelizing. Yes, Flat Earthers are no longer content with wallowing in willful ignorance here on YouTube. Now they are taking to the streets in an attempt to spread their nuttiness amongst the general public. I'm using some clips from some recent videos posted by a guy called Dell who owns a channel called Neyond The Imaginary Curve. It's fair to mention that I have had a run-in with Dell in his hangout. A link to our encounter is in the description. I think his approach is absurd and deceptive, and I think this needs to be pointed out. I hope that some of Dell's victims will also get to see this, so I'll be assuming my viewer has not come across the modern Flat Earth idea before and throwing in a few explanations along the way accordingly. My apologies if you are already familiar with the madness that is Flat Earth. I did try and approach Dell and point out a couple of his errors in the comments section of the first of these videos. My post was initially met with smug ignorance by Dell's gang of followers, and then eventually Dell himself replied. He didn't respond to a single point I made, and seemed to think I wanted to come to his hangout and prove the globe. So he gets this video made about him instead. The first thing I want to point out is that Dell comes well prepared, or at least he thinks he does. You can see Dell and crew here discussing the questioning strategy they use for these interviews. His victims, of course, are completely unprepared, as we will see. So let's take a look at Dell in action.
Does it concern you that when I say to you that NASA have no real photographs and no real video footage from space? And the reality is that none of those photographs or videos are actually real. Yep, they tell you on their website. Honestly, they're composite images. Absolutely 100%, that's why we're here. Does it concern you that there's no real pictures from space or video footage from space? There's no real photographs or video from space?
But I thought there are photos of the Earth from space.
There's none. They tell you on NASA's website that every image is a composite. If we were living in a sphere, we would have real 24-hour video, real images from space, but we don't.
And how can you provide evidence that the pictures aren't real?
Yes, they tell me. Who? NASA.
They haven't told me that they
Go to their website and they'll tell you that all their images are composite images. They're composite images, they're not photographs. It's just people don't understand the language.
I think it's Dell that doesn't understand the language. Composite does not mean not real. It's simply a series of overlapping photographs joined together to make a single image. This is done because satellites that are close to the Earth cannot see the whole Earth, but they can see small parts of it in greater detail than satellites orbiting further away. The claim that all images are composites, and NASA tell you this on their website, is nonsense. NASA say no such thing on any website. There are currently 4 satellites which regularly produce full Earth images. The Japanese satellite Himawari 8 produces a new image every 15 minutes. Russian satellite Electro-L produces a new image every 2 hours. NASA satellite Epic produces a new image every 2 hours. And the new NOAA satellite GOES 16 is just about to start transmitting a new image every 15 minutes. Collectively, these satellites have produced hundreds of thousands of full Earth images, and none of them are composites. On top of this, there are many more photographs of the Earth that are not composite. Hundreds from the Apollo missions, hundreds more from various other unmanned space probes, and thousands of hours of video from the Space Shuttle missions and from the ISS. Of course, Dell believes all of this to have been faked, but more of Dell's beliefs later. Let's see how he responds when challenged on these points.
You can make a composite picture. What's wrong with that? You can use more than one photo.
Yeah. But I find it strange that $50 million per day, and the only thing we have is cartoons. I think that's a wee bit concerning, to be honest with you.
So composite apparently now means cartoon. And finally we see a classic Flat Earth tactic. When you can't answer the challenge, just change the subject.
What was it, images?
Yes. actually true?
Absolutely 100%. That's why we're here.
Do you have proof of that?
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I'm asking you, and you're asking me.
I know.
I love that though.
Endless cycle, isn't
But
it?
I'm into natural science. You know what natural science is?
Now, I was hopeful that maybe Dell had actually read the points I made, because in his next set of interviews recorded some days later, he changes his claim about NASA to this.
You know, he says they went to the moon in the 1960s. Do you think they did?
That's all from debate, I don't know, political hot potato there.
Yes. But if NASA are now saying they can't achieve beyond low Earth orbit with all the modern technologies and stuff, then that would suggest to me that there was absolutely no chance that they went to the moon. NASA now are openly saying things like, oh, we hope to achieve past low Earth orbit in the future. Right? They have an issue with a thing called the Van Allen radiation belts. This is what they say, this is their story. The Van Allen radiation belt starts from approximately 1,000 miles up and it extends 25,000 miles. So you've got a depth of 25,000 miles on these Van Allen radiation belts that they can't penetrate and they can't get beyond.
But he can't resist throwing in his old favourite too.
I'll go back to it again. You know, you go to NASA's website, they'll tell you that all the images you're seeing there are composites. They're composite images, they're no actual photographs because, you know, you can't get out.
This new claim is another Flat Earth favourite. It originates from this short documentary produced by NASA about development of their new Orion spacecraft called Trial by Fire. Link is in the description. And in particular, this section.
Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. For this flight, it's time to head home.
The first thing to point out here is that everything Dell claims to know about the Van Allen radiation belts is information he got from NASA, who he says can't go there. I don't want to go too far into the science here because that's a video all on its own. Firstly, the clue is in the name, Van Allen radiation belts. They form a large donut shape around the equatorial plane and contain various radioactive particles, most of which are not lethal to shielded humans for short exposures. The Apollo missions simply flew around the most dangerous areas. Their passage took a little over an hour. The Soviets also sent their Zond 5 spacecraft on a lunar return mission and successfully recovered its biological payload of 2 tortoises, mealworms and wine flies. So if it wasn't a problem in the 60s, why is it a problem that now needs to be solved? The Apollo spacecraft were single-use vehicles. There are none left, and in the half-century since they were designed, there have been many advances in space technology. Perhaps the most significant of these is in computing. Intricate modern computers are far more susceptible to radiation damage than their clunky 60s counterparts. Finally, the Apollo missions were each about a week long. Orion is being prepared for potential trips to Mars, which would last 3 years at a minimum. It may have to contend with the solar flares of interplanetary space and the Martian radiation belts. It's a completely different vehicle designed for totally different missions. While we're on NASA, let's just deal with another of Dell's uninformed claims.
Well, I know there's like videos of the moon landing and stuff.
Yeah.
I know that's not.
That's been falsified now.
What's that?
It's been falsified.
100%?
Yep. But we're supposed to believe that in the 1960s, first time, never tried it before, they managed to do it. First time, no bother. There's so much evidence now that's shown me that it's absolutely fabricated. It's total nonsense. You know, it's ridiculous, childish stuff.
The Apollo missions have not been falsified 100%. In fact, most of the prominent Apollo deniers, such as Bill Kaysing and Bart Sibrel, have been totally discredited. And to suggest the first successful landing is suspicious simply because it was successful is idiotic. Each of the Gemini missions took a step towards Apollo, and each Apollo mission took a step towards the Moon. There were 23 separate tests of the Apollo launch vehicles and spacecraft, many of which involved launching the spacecraft into orbit before any humans were even aboard. Apollos 7, 8, 9 and 10 each rehearsed various parts of the lunar mission, orbiting the moon with Apollo 8 and flying the lunar module in a landing trajectory on Apollo 10. Only someone with almost no knowledge of the Apollo missions would suggest that this happened first time no bother. These NASA claims are Dell's tidbits he uses to get things going. Flat Earthers have two gateway conspiracies that they always fall back to, because proposing them generally meets less resistance and derision. These are the moon landings and 9/11. Before Dell gets into his arguments, he likes to set himself up as some sort of authority by talking about natural science.
I'm into natural science. You know what natural science is?
No.
Yeah, there's natural, formal and social science. I'm not a religious guy. I'm a science guy. And I had to go through cognitive dissonance. I believed I lived in a good science.
Right.
And I'm a natural science guy. Do you know what natural science is?
Not exactly.
Natural science is basically observing the world, you know.
Right.
And you know, science. I follow and I study natural science. Are you aware what natural science is?
What do you think is
Natural science, you have natural science, you have formal science and social science. Things like mathematics are a formal science because they don't depend on empirical observations. You can start from an axiom or a presumption, you can create a mathematical model. You understand these types of things?
Yeah.
So natural science for me is observable, testable, repeatable. Would you agree that that's the core of science?
Yeah.
So if I make a claim to you about reality, I should be able to scale it, produce it, repeat it, and everybody can then do that.
I would really like to know how much studying of science Dell has actually done. His definition of natural science is completely incorrect. What he is actually referring to here is the scientific method, not natural science. But he has even got this wrong by throwing in his own condition of scalability. To define anything which doesn't meet these criteria as not science is an entirely ludicrous tactic usually deployed by young Earth creationists so they can deny things like evolutionary biology and paleontology. Dell uses it so that he can sound reasonable while being completely unreasonable, as we will see. In the process of redefining all of science in this way, Dell also feels the need to just discard all of mathematics as well, which he seems to think is a sort of fairy dust that can be used to conjure up anything, but can't be used to measure things.
So mathematics is a formal science because it doesn't depend on empirical observations. So you can have mathematical axioms that have got no relation to reality, and you can form, you know, a theory and stuff from that. But for me, mathematics is a formal science. You can start from a false premise or an axiom, and you can create a mad, fantastical, that works mathematically, but when you look for the practical examples of it in real life, they fall short. Repeatable, measurable proof of
But they measure it with mathematics.
But mathematics is a formal science. You can start from a false
But
axiom.
everything is built around mathematics.
No, it's not.
You like this.
Let's move on to Dell's favourite argument, and if you've ever seen him in action, you'll know what's coming. Tell us about water, Dell.
Could you give me one practical example of a body of water conforming to the exterior of a shape? Do you think you could show me that? Could you give me one practical example of a body of water conforming to the exterior of a shape? Could you give me a practical example of a body of water conforming to the exterior of a shape?
No.
That all bodies of water will conform to the shape of the container, and that all bodies of water will seek and maintain their own level. Would you agree with that?
I think so, yeah.
So how then can it be possible that you live on a globe?
About 30 minutes. Gravity.
Dell's last victim here, of course, is correct. Gravity affects water just like it affects everything else. But again, you can just Google this if you genuinely want to know about it. What I want to address is the structure of the argument. By insisting everything complies with his weird definition of natural science, he makes the task of presenting any evidence impossible. What precisely does Dell mean when he says practical example? He usually avoids defining this, although he slips up and gives the game away in this clip.
Can you show me a scale model of the globe? And I don't mean a plastic toy. I mean with rock, air, dirt, water, all the elements of reality. Can you achieve that? No. You think it's scientific?
When Dell says practical example, what he actually means is a working scale model. Of course, this isn't a standard anyone, including Dell, would apply when considering the existence of anything. Is there a working scale model of China, the Atlantic Ocean, a strawberry, an eagle? Of course not. This doesn't mean we can't understand many things about how these things function and behave, and it isn't a reason anyone would use to doubt the existence of anything, unless it was the only way they could find to justify believing utter bollocks. We can't make an object smaller than the Earth suddenly start generating its own gravity, which is then strong enough to overcome Earth's gravity and consequently keep water sticking to it. It's impossible and completely ridiculous. And when Dell is given a practical example,
A practical example, didn't someone drop a feather in a
vacuum. Yeah. But unfortunately,
same speed?
but we live in a pressurised system. We live with an atmosphere. We live in air and pressure. So how things behave here in this reality is what we're focusing on.
Okay.
it's instantly dismissed because the experiment was conducted in a vacuum chamber in order to eliminate the effects of air resistance. This was essential to the validity of the experiment and absolutely legitimate according to Dell's own scientific method. But it's dismissed because Dell thinks a vacuum chamber is another reality. On to Dell's next argument. He only really has two.
So you know they tell you that space is a vacuum and that we live in an atmosphere, a positive pressure system. So I can say there's a negative pressure system and a positive pressure system. Now in reality, two opposing pressure systems 100% of the time require a solid separation. Do you agree with that?
Go along with that, eh?
Yeah. Could you give me one practical example of two opposing pressure systems existing side by side without a solid separation between them? In natural science, testable, observable, repeatable 100% of the time, two opposing pressure systems require a solid separation between them, or else we have a thing called equilibrium. Do you understand what that means? Yeah. So, you know, a vacuum, which is a negative pressure system, and a positive pressure system is what we live in. Do you think that the two of them can exist side by side without a solid barrier?
Now on this one, I just can't resist highlighting Dell's childlike understanding of the world around him. The Earth's atmosphere and the vacuum of space are not two opposing pressure systems. I think this is a phrase Dell invented. First of all, when we say the vacuum of space, I think Dell is thinking this. He's probably seen a movie where this happens. And it's called a vacuum, so it must suck, right? Wrong. Space is nothing. It isn't sucking, and it isn't capable of exerting any kind of force on anything. On Earth at sea level, we have an air pressure of 14.7 pounds per square inch. As we go higher, the air pressure reduces. On top of Mount Everest at 29,000 feet, the air pressure is just 4.89 pounds per square inch. The atmosphere continues to get progressively thinner the higher you go, until eventually there is nothing. So the nothing of the upper atmosphere and the nothing of space have no problem coexisting without a solid barrier between them. Let's see the tactic that Dell uses to wrap these arguments up. Meet the pink unicorn.
Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows.
Let's test your knowledge and see what you've learned so far.
So if I says to you, you know, I have a pink unicorn, and you said, show me a pink unicorn, and I says, well, I can't, would you believe that I had a pink unicorn? Of course not. See my pink unicorn?
I guess.
I'd be intrigued, yeah.
You'd want to see my pink unicorn? Unfortunately, I can't show you my pink unicorn because it's in some other dimension that only I can access. Do you believe it's real?
Probably not, no.
Can you show me a body of water conforming to the exterior of a shape?
I've forgotten my answer to that one. I think I went for maybe, I'll stick to that.
Nope. Is it reality? Water conforming to the exterior of a shape?
I'm confused.
Well, I'm saying to you, if I can't show you my pink unicorn, and you say obviously it's not reality if I can't show you it, and you can't show me a body of water conforming to the exterior of a shape, should I believe it as reality? I can't show you my pink unicorn, You can't show me a body of water conforming to the exterior of a shape, nor can you show me two opposing pressure systems existing side by side without a barrier between them. So why would I accept that as reality?
It really is astounding that Dell actually believes he is making a logical argument here. Here's how it works. Demand that random passers-by produce impossible working scale models of some misdescribed phenomena. When the passerby fails, conclude that the phenomena doesn't exist and is therefore the product of a massive international conspiracy lasting 500 years. Okay, that's Dell's main arguments out of the way. It took him 2 years to formulate those, so let's run through some more of his nonsense.
There's a camera called a Nikon P900 Coolpix. It's got a super zoom on it, and people are zooming into the stars and showing you what they actually look like, and they don't look anything like NASA shows. Nothing. There's cameras now that Nikon have created called a P900 Coolpix with a super zoom. There's so many people all over Earth now who are videoing the stars and what they call planets, and they're nothing like NASA showed you. Nothing like NASA showed you. They're no solid bodied things. Most of the stars are like plasmic electrical fields that are just morphing in and out. You've heard, I'm sure, in your lifetime that ships disappear over the curvature of the Earth. Am I correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Now, you're aware nowadays that we have technology like super zoom cameras. There's one in particular called a P900 Coolpix. We can observe a ship going into the horizon and totally vanishing, totally gone. We can then pull out the camera, zoom back in and bring the full thing into full view again.
Flat Earthers just love the Nikon Coolpix P900. As you can see, they think it's a magic camera. This is what Dell is referring to with his first claim. Flat Earthers point a camera with a digital zoom at a planet or star, zoom in fully, and then put the camera out of focus to create this wobbling effect. Check out this video called Manufacturing Horseshit 101 from my friend Mr. B to show you how this is done. Dell's second claim regarding boats over the horizon you can see here. They just zoom in on an object and then zoom out until the object is too small for the camera to resolve, and then claim that the thing was over the horizon. Note the curious double standard here. Every photograph and video from every space agency that's ever been produced is instantly rejected as fake, while videos from random flat earthers are accepted as the gospel truth. I'm willing to bet Dell has never looked through a telescope or attempted to bring an object back into view from over the horizon himself.
How can I watch at the sky through a telescope and see that Venus is a sphere?
Circle.
Yeah.
It's not a sphere, it's a flat disc. But what we see is two-dimensional. We don't see spheres.
Satellites at night as well.
Well, we don't know what they are.
Around the Earth.
We don't know what I don't know what they are.
If Dell had ever looked in a telescope, I don't think he would be saying this. The orbit and rotation of the moon takes slightly different times, and this means we actually see about 59% of the moon. So we know for certain it is anything but a flat disk. You would have thought a person reliant only on their own observations would know this. We can see the rotation of other planets and of the sun. As we can see, Dell's position is very reliant on this kind of willful ignorance.
I thought you could see the curvature of the Earth when Concorde was flying. Do you know that for a fact?
Well, I know for a fact there's people put balloons up, and there's one I could show you right now at 121,000 feet.
Flat Earthers love these high altitude balloon videos. Usually they are recorded using cameras with fisheye lenses and image stabilization. This causes the image to sort of warp a little as the camera moves, and so the horizon will appear convex, concave and straight. Flat Earthers can only see the straight frames, of course. The horizon does not always rise to eye level. Here is a video by Slice Barcane demonstrating this. Yet another thing Dell apparently knows from a test he clearly hasn't done.
If you're standing watching a ship going over the curvature, this is where the contradictions come in. Obviously we know bodies of water lie flat, so it's not happening, right? That's not it. But they try and use an optical thing to tell you that's what's happening. Now they're saying to you that's happening between 3 and 12 miles, right? Now you can say, right, fine, well this ship's going over the horizon at 3 to 12 miles, but here's the problem. I can see from left to right up to 100 miles unobstructed in my view. Absolutely no curvature there. So do you not think it's a wee bit of contradiction? If you see a ship going over the curve that way, at 12 miles, we'll say gearing the maximum, but you can see 80 to 100 miles left to right with absolutely zero curvature, that would tell me that you lived on a cylinder.
You live in a cylinder, is that where we're coming from?
The horizon is flat. If you have an unobstructed view in all directions, then the horizon is at the same distance in all directions. From your point of view, you are standing at the centre of a flat circle. Your distance to the horizon is dependent on your elevation above it. The 3 miles Dell is referring to is where the horizon appears if you are about 6 feet above sea level. Take a look at this view from the JP Morgan Chase Tower in Houston. The observation deck is at 879 feet. We can use Metabunk's Earth Curvature calculator to determine that the horizon is about 36 miles away. So our view looks like this on a map. As we zoom out, you can see that we are only able to see a tiny fraction of the Earth's surface. This is what lies at the heart of many flat Earth claims. They just don't get the scale. Ex-Flat Earther Reverse Course made this video where he drew part of the Earth to scale. You can see here he has marked out 150 miles. In that distance the Earth curves just over 2 degrees, so even if Dell was high enough to see this much horizon in a single field of view, he shouldn't expect to be able to detect this tiny amount of curvature.
There is zero measurable curvature anywhere.
This is not true. YouTuber and geodetic surveyor Jesse Kozlowski has produced a number of videos showing how the curvature is measured in great detail. His blog, shown here, shows all of the measurements he took when he measured the curvature over 1 mile. Geodetic surveys show conclusively that the Earth is not flat, so flat earthers reject this evidence with the claim that a globe was simply assumed and everyone works from that. This is also untrue. The history of the early surveyors and their measurement methods is well documented. This video from NOAA is a good starting point.
Well, we don't know what they are.
Around the Earth.
We don't know what I don't know what they are. Nobody knows. I don't make a claim to know what I don't know what it's made of. I don't know where it actually is. I don't know its full dimensions.
What you're suggesting is there if it isn't?
Nobody knows. This is what we don't know. This is what we're trying to bring people's awareness to. Right, we don't know what it is.
The burden of proof must be avoided at all costs. Dell literally wants us to exchange what we do know for what he doesn't know.
There's two mindsets. One mindset could be this: life's an accident. That life came from rocks. It formed itself. There was a big bang, and that everything's flying through endless space with no meaning. They're trying to push evolution. They're trying to push abiogenesis, which is, life from nothing. It just happens itself. Now that's one mind state. The other mind state is life is created, the earth is created, and this is exactly where you're supposed to be. Now those two mindsets to me are totally different, because one makes you feel significant and one makes you feel insignificant. Sure. So that's for me why they created the whole globe illusion.
Here Dell steals a few lines from the young Earth creationists, who along with the flat earthers are the only people claiming that life came from rocks. Evolution is taught because it offers the best explanation we have for the diversity of life on Earth, but that's another huge subject. Do you have either of these mindsets? Or do you know anyone who thinks of themselves in the way that Dell is describing? I'm also confused by the fact that the designed flat Earth is where we are meant to be, and yet the reason for lying that it's a globe is to stop us from exploring.
That's what we want to highlight, the fact that people just take what they're told and they believe it.
Then why shouldn't I believe that?
Yeah. Well, I would suggest that I would stop anybody from adopting any beliefs, because for me a belief is a substitute for knowing. So right away I would encourage people not to believe anything, to trust your own senses and to trust real natural science, which is observable, testable, repeatable. That's how we operate, that's how we construct. We have technology. There is an objective reality that's really there, that we can measure, test and depend on. So what I would say is, don't believe in any institution who's telling you that you should believe. For me there's an issue.
Dell likes to use this wordplay with the word belief. The guy asked, why shouldn't I believe that? Meaning, I have reason to believe X is true. What are your reasons for believing X is not true? If the guy has reasons to believe X is true, and if X turns out to be objectively true, then the guy has a justified, true belief. And this is how many people define knowledge. You cannot know something without believing it. I'm going to avoid getting further into the philosophy here, that would take forever. Dell claims not to have beliefs, but of course he has plenty. Let's see.
Copernicus was a Jesuit priest. The religious institutions controlled society, and they still do. They infiltrated science. They were Jesuit priests, but they have to invent these incredible magic forces. But that's what they told you. They told you that there was an edge. Part of the psychological tricks that the governments have used is to put images of a flat earth into people's mind, that it's a flat disc and that you can fall off the edge. If you take one generation of kids or people and you educate them in a certain method or with a certain belief or ideology, then that generation then automatically starts passing it on to the next generation, and it just becomes accepted as the norm. So psychologically, if you can tell people to live on a sphere, what you're saying to them is that's all that exists. There's no way off. There's nothing else to explore. There's nothing else to find. Therefore, people won't question it. They'll just go about their life and think that they're over there. They created things like NASA. They used Nazi scientists who they brought out from Germany through a thing called Project Paperclip. Yeah, they're faking it. I'm going to go around the world. You watching? Stay there. There, I'm back again. Yeah, there is an equator.
Where's that then?
Well, the equator is where it is. The countries are on the equator. Well, see that big pond there? See if I was to go there and I was to put 7 continents in it.
Yep.
Right? That would be an accurate representation of the reality we actually live in. There's a possibility that there's other ponds like yours beyond, and there's other life in them. Everything tells us that it's stationary and flat. As I say, you get the agencies who try and, because there's a lot of attention on this, because obviously it's a huge secret. So they try and, push these maps and models and then try and get you to adopt them so they can attack it. And we need all the militaries in the world exploring in order to find exactly what the full dimensions are, because it's being hidden for us right now. It ain't no fucking globe.
Dell believes in a conspiracy that has lasted undetected for at least the last 500 years. This was started by religious institutions, with the Catholic Church being significantly instrumental. They infiltrated science and invented some magical forces. They were able to set this in motion by simply telling one generation of children about it, and everyone else since has just believed it. The conspiracy continued into the 20th century when the Nazis got involved by founding NASA, which along with every other space agency and company has actually done no space exploration at all, and has in fact faked everything. These evildoers are currently perpetuating the lie by disseminating fake flat earth maps and models onto the internet in order to discredit flat earthers. The world is actually a flat and stationary puddle, with the continents laid out in a circular fashion and surrounded by some sort of wall or container, which if crossed might reveal other flat and stationary puddles. In 500 years, not a single person spotted any of this until Dell the natural scientist came along and was able to overturn all of known physics by spraying some water on a broken football and watching YouTube videos. The only way the conspiracy will be fully revealed is when public opinion can persuade the evil authorities who are lying to us to go out and explore and tell us what's out there. All of this is true because of water.